welcome to Weekend Project. I'm Laura Lynn of the Mom and Pop Quilt Shop, and we're working on kind of like, it has a few names. It's called a do-rag, or a chemo cap, or a fabric skull cap cover, or anything like that. So that's what we're going to be building out today. I was liking it for riding underneath my helmet when I'm riding on the trails, because sometimes it gets a little bit sweaty and so on and so forth. It actually catches the sweat and helps keep you know, the bugs from getting at me. And my whole idea was to make it for something for Father's Day, okay? But I am going to use this very beautiful fabric that Claudette has given us to the fabric shop, and it says Queen of Quilts, so I'm making one for me. So this one I just kind of made just to make sure it was going to work, and it seems to just fine. So the feed pattern link will be listed below, and I just did it up to the size where I needed it to be to fit my scalp, so on and so forth. I will give some general measurements of what I cut out here, and that'll also be listed below, okay? So when you're pinning it, you have to really think consciously of what fabric is going on the side, because there's a piece right here and a piece right there, and then there's a piece right down the center, which is this little back flap attachment here, and then you have a band that goes all the way around as one piece. So that needs to be done on a fold. So it is the center piece right here, okay? So that's here, and the one for the strap for the front across here is right here. So I've laid it on my fold, making sure I'm getting that bit. But you could sew a seam. It's completely up to you. Don't worry about it. And then making sure, especially if it's directional fabric, you really want to take that in consideration when you're cutting this out. Like this beautiful motorcycle fabric here, which I plan to make one for Pop. That'll be one of his Father's Day gifts. And I'm going to try and make sure it's very directional orientated. So I'm going to have to cut it and piece two of them together to make sure that the fold ends up going, you know, equal size, because I want to make sure the bikes are like riding this way, right? You know, across the side of my head sort of thing, or try to cross Pop's head. So that's going to be one of his, you know, Father's Day surprises, okay? So what we're going to do today is cut out this one, and I've already got it on the fold, okay? It takes about a quarter meter of fabric, maybe just a little bit more, depending on where you lay this one out. But to make sure you have the fold of the fabric for all the way from the tip here all the way back to the end of your little flappy flap, you want to make sure that's on a fold. And then this piece right here, you don't have to make sure it's on a fold, but I like it to be that way because it's a nice consistent piece. And you could also double this also, like you could have it so the under layer was there, or you wanted to make 2 layers, make it reversible, you could still do that too, okay? So what I did is I just traced it out into nice stabilizing fabric, so a stabilizer. It's like a light medium mesh. Pop got a whole roll of it, so I've been using it for a few things to trace out patterns, and so that's what, you know, I've done there, and then we will trace it out, okay? So I just want to pin it. That's my ends here, my little tippy tips. Where are they? I've tied them right there. And then this bit right here, which is on the fold, is right in the center, okay? So we've got that there. Got a couple more pins to put in. And then we can just trim this or cut this out, okay? I love this fabric. When I realized it said Queen of Quilts, I'm like, yeah, I gotta make me one. Yeah, thank you, Claudette. So this will be my biking one, and I didn't. I used the line as the cut line and not the, you know, it would be like for the seam allowance, and you just use a 1/4 inch seam allowance, and you're just cutting that out on the pattern. Okay. Use your good fabric scissors. I kind of got my universal scissors here. Okay. And it won't take very long to put one of these together. When you think of it, it's really only a few pieces, right? And it comes together quite fast. I was quite surprised, actually. Oh, I missed a layer. Oh, I missed a whole layer right from the beginning. Oh no, only one. All right, here we go again. Alright, there we go. Okay, so there's one piece. So that goes right, that is right here at the beginning of the scalp, and then it goes all the way across to the back, and that is that little part at the back there. Okay, so there's that one piece, and you only have 3 pieces. It's not too hard. Okay, I'll trim this out here. And it takes very little time to sew it together. And if you have a serger, that's great. Pinking shears work, or zigzagging. You know, you've got a couple of options. If you don't have a serger and you don't have a pair of pinking shears, then use your zigzag. Other than that, I just use pinking shears on the inside seams to help with the, you know, a little bit of fraying. Okay. Especially if you're using two to make it reversible. Okay. Be great if you had it like in two flannels. Someone could wear that under their snowmobile helmet, or if they were doing like dirt biking or something like that, it would help catch the sweat and, you know, help prevent it from getting into their eyes. I think it's a great idea. Even anything that wears a helmet, you know, even horse riders, you know, like equestrian. You know, anything like that would help keep the hair out of the eyes, that sort of thing, the sweat from getting in the eyes. Or just help contain the, you know, if you have like a wild mane hair. Like I did when I was young. Way back when. Alright, so just tracing that out. And if you really wanted to have something really special, then you'd make sure that was right in the center of this piece, because that goes right at the side of the scalp right here, okay? So those are my pieces all cut out. There we go. Okay, that's that piece there, and I will tell you on average of what it went from edge to edge here is approximately 9 inches from here to here, and the width is 3 1/4. The fattest bit is right there. Okay, and then this one right here is approximately 16.5 inches in length this way, and the width of laying up this way on the fold. Okay, so you would double it, and you're looking at about 3 1/2, 3 3/4 inches to get all the way there. So, you know, and then this one as well goes, if you were to go on the fold, on an angle coming down, because that's how it gets that little angle of the fabric. You're looking at like 16 inches on the fold, and it's only about, you know, 2 1/2 inches, and then it variegates down to smaller on the side there. Okay, so that gives you kind of a good average of what size yours should be. It's kind of like a one size fits all, but you know, if you're doing it for kids, of course you can do a bit smaller. If you got, you know, monstrosity head people in your family, then, you know, you can, you know, do it a little bit bigger. You know, add a seam allowance to it, right? So, and go from there. I had to try one to figure out, you know, whether it was going to work or not. Okay, so there's your 3 little pieces. Very easy to deal with. I know this one was like, I was like, are you sure? And then I realized it was on the fold, so it makes sense. Okay, so we'll put those there. Actually, we'll kind of, since the fan's on, pin them together. I don't want to lose them. All right, so here's our main piece. Okay, that's our very, very back part. That's this right here, okay? And then this is our front part. That's going to be right up here where we're going to end up putting a bit of a band. So we want to get our side pieces together, which would be, let me move this out of the way, will be here and here, because we want to curve those tips, and we're going to pin from here all the way down to this edge right here with that edge, and we're just going to pin along that edge like a little curve, okay? So let me just line it up here so you see where I'm going. And I hope you make one, even if it's just for you, you know, keep the bugs away from you in the garden, you know, or make it for the munchkin, you know, the grandbaby. Okay, and then you just line it up, easing the fabric as you go. It's a good way to practice a curve, you know what I mean? If you're a little unsure of a curve, you know, they make you a little afraid or something like that, this is a great little one to work on. You're just easing the fabric together, lining up those, and you should end up with, you know, they should come together right there. There's a nice little point. You shouldn't have one longer than the other or anything like that. Put in as many pins as you feel you need to keep that together. Okay, so there's the one side done. So, you know, if you see if we were to stitch it, go like there. So let's do the other side. Okay, and it took me, for some reason, I get the first side done, and then I'd look at the second side and go, okay, well, how does that work? I'm a little confused. So I'd have to go and line it up to myself as if I'd already sewed it, and then I'm like, okay, so that edge got to get picked in there, and then fold it around, and I was like, okay, for some reason, I don't know, the second side always had me confused. Shiny objects, I don't know. And then we just pin all the way around to get to that edge, and you're just following the curve of that top piece, that little side piece, along to the back piece, okay? And hope you're having a fantastic weekend. And thank you for liking and subscribing and checking us out on Patreon. We really, really appreciate that. Thank you very, very much. And please join us tomorrow on the live stream at 3 p.m. Eastern Canadian time. Not that it really matters. For the last part of the double wedding room is getting put together with behind me. I have lots still yet to sew. Okay, I have to make a decision. Okay, so those are my 2 curved pieces sewn together. Okay, you see here? Like that. Got a little tail in the back. This is going to come in the front, and then we're going to add our little band once we get all this sewn together, okay? It's going to be easy peasy. So we're going to pop over to the sewing machine, okay? And sew these 2 curves down. And then there's this point right here where where you see in this pattern, let me just set it separated here. We need to sew those 2 areas together. I didn't in this one, and I will show you so you can see it. Here, let me untie it. And I guess it's up to you. If you don't have to, if you don't want to, if you find it's easier to fit, then go forward and do it that way. But I just kind of left them separated. The one I tested for Munchkin, I actually did sew them together. So, I mean, it's up to you, whether you want to or not. We will sew these 2 together, okay? But I just wanted to show you what it would look like if you didn't, all right? So, and of course, I love my Sophie Lofi. I did this one. So, and I don't know who will wear it, but it'll be around here, so I'm not too worried. It will get used. Okay. Tuck in my ears. All right. So we're going to sew those 2 edges all the way around. Okay. Oops. Get that out of the way. Like I said, if you had directional fabric, you really want to think about this pattern layout beforehand to make sure you were utilizing that fabric as much as possible, because especially if it's a something you really want to show off, like these motorcycles, right, or these beautiful queen of quilts, the Queen of Hearts, right, which I thought that was so cute when I finally noticed that. So sorry I didn't notice it right away. Claudette, thank you very much. I won't make one for me. I'll make one for Pop too, but I really like this fabric, so it was making me giggle. Okay. Oop. A little wayward birdie there. So I'll stick in. Okay. We just keep puttering around on the edge. And this is where you could use your zigzag stitch to secure it. You could take your pinking shears if you're not sure where pinking shears are. Hold on here. I did have them, but clearly not at the ready, and I meant to. So here we go. These are pinking shears. They're got a weird little edge to them, like a little ziggity zag, and they help cut the fabric in such a way where it lessens the fraying around the fabric edge, okay? So you don't get a lot of weird wacky little edges and weird hairs. These help if you just go along very gently along the edge, just go slowly. They're sometimes expensive. I think these ones were about $30, but I was very, very happy for them, and they've helped me out in many situations doing projects like this without having to get out my serger or use the zigzag, okay? So they're very handy if you just have a pair of those, or even another decorative one. There's scalped edge and the zigzag, so, there you go. Either one worked just fine, okay? Use what you got. You don't always have to buy something different, right? Okay, and then just make sure you're stitching all the way. Stitch all the way off, okay? All right, so makes a nice clean stitch out all the way. All right, now we're going to do the other side. You don't really even have to press in this. You could if you wanted to. I don't really see the point because you're trying to do something round, not flat. If anything, press the fabric to make sure it's nice and straight and no wrinkles on it before you're cutting. So that would definitely be the key point there. But did I even turn on the iron for this? Nope, I didn't. I wasn't quite sure if I did or not. Make sure I get both edges. If you happen to miss a bit of one edge as you're going around, don't worry about it. Just come back again and get her done. You might have to pick a few stitches to line the fabric up again, but I had it happen on this one. I had a little tiny hole just before I realized I was going to sew around the edge. So we'll check it here to make sure we're all good. I thought it might have came a little close on this edge here, but it looks like I got it all. Oh, that's a little close. I think I'm going to turn that over and make sure I get that a little bit better on that side. Just come in just a wee little bit. There we go, just to secure those stitches on that edge. Okay, so now we have that part done, which is really the majority of the skull part, okay? So now we're gonna add that little band that's gonna come across right here, just like we're doing here, and ends up being little ties for the back part, okay? So I will close these two zones right now, which were the edges here that we were talking about on the foundation piece right here. I am gonna sew that down and sew it closed. So you just kind of pinch the edges together and sew from where it opens up right up here all the way down to the very edge, okay? And feel free to do a back stitch for security. Okay. Actually, the one I made Munchkin was out of the red and white fabric that Claudette sent, and he really looked like a pirate. It was really quite cute. He's like, "Oh, I really love this, Mom. Thanks." I was like, "Yeah." I was trying to think of, you know, a fun little pattern that would. It didn't really matter whether it was like, you know, directional or not, just to kind of practice out first. Okay, so now those two sides are sewn down. It kind of closes in the back part here, across back bar by the tail. And then we want to take the middle part of this and the middle part of this. So we know how we find that. We have our two seams right there. We're going to line them up and find the center of our little middle part, okay? So we're going to pinch that together, put our two right sides together. We want to do it this way. Okay, make sure I got it right. There we go. And then pin all the way around, making sure we have our middles. And middles are very, very, very important at this point, okay? Because then that gives us equal tails in the back. And then that's it. Well, not really it. You could either pinking shear all the way around if you like. If you didn't want to sew it, make a little edge. But I did sew or just fold it over once and do a little sew all the way around. So we will do that too. Okay. And since this is just, you know, something that's just going to be, you know, washed and, you know, worn a few times, or probably more than that if you're a sweaty person, you know, you can treat it any way you like. So that's why I say the pinking shears, the zigzag, whatever works for you. Okay, so now we worked one side of the cap, or do-rag, whatever you want to call it. It's up to you, you know. It has many, many names, and that's what we will list it as, is as many names as I had found out. And it took a little while to find a free pattern, so, and of course our printer, the inker was working, but then it really wasn't working, so I figured, how can I do this without actually printing? So I just kind of blew it up on my main television and traced it out, so via this foundation fabric. So, okay. I know you're thinking that's crazy, but you know, it worked. All right, so now I have that band, okay, pinned all the way around, just like that. And now we're just going to sew. We're just going to sew from one edge all the way around, okay? Giving our nice little 1/4" seam allowance. If you wanted to double it, that's where you'd have the two fabrics at this point in time, and they would be wrong sides facing together, and you would already deal with it in a manner that it can just be sewn on and then just flip down, okay? And it makes a great little quick project. Great gifts for people. Got a little family of bikers. Be nice to make them all the same color or something like that, so they don't get lost in a party. They can just go look at the little head wraps to make sure, you know, oh, you know, there's so-and-so or whatever. I think it'd be a great idea. You know, you have a family reunion coming up. Make everybody one, so, you know, the heat's not on their head. The sun's not on their head if they don't have a cap or something, right? So, you know, I think it might be a nice little, something you can easily personalize, do a little applique in the center, or like I say, you get designer fabric or even just a solid fabric and you add something different to it. You know, you can add, you know, buttons, whatever. Not that you'd want to wear that between a helmet or anything like that, but okay. So there we go. There's our base of our hat, or, you know, cap, okay? And now we're just going to pretty much fold over the 1/4" and sew all the way down and around the whole thing to end up with this piece right here, okay? So that's what we're going to do. I liked working from the inside first. So I took this and held it up like that. And I'm like, okay, well, where do I want to go to? I'm going to go from this side all the way down across here, do little folds and just folds over just the 1/4 inches. Just the 1/4 inches over the way, and then just kind of, you know, tuck and fold and get that up there, and 1/4 inch. If you need to pin it, pin it. I was just kind of folding it. So, and then that is weekend project. I hope you make one or two or 5 or 6. Just, it'd be nice to, you know, somebody work, you know, a welder's. There's actually BikerCap was another one, was that came up as well. Or welder helmet liner. That was another one. So, you know, there's many different ideas to go with this, and you can use it in many different ways, right? Just make sure you're lifting up your foot as you're rotating it around, just folding that little edge under about 1/4 inch, and before you're getting into these little crucial corner spots, lifting the foot, manipulating the fabric so it folds under 1/4 inch, and then gradually just turning the fabric around, okay? And then come all the way down, past the point, then we're gonna flip up. We're gonna fold that little corner up there, and then still fold over 1/4 inch. I know it does make back the triangle, that point that you need, that makes that little back flap over here, and it looks just fine, okay? So just fold that in the corner. Make sure you're lifting up before you get to the edge part where you got to just tuck the fabric over 1/4 inch, pivot, and work your way up. And that's the inner side done. That's the hardest part right there, really, I think, is getting that little zone tucked under, that 1/4 inch. Okay, and then the easiest part is doing this right here. And that'll be last. We'll do that right now. Okay. And then I will put it on and you can see, easy peasy. You know, you have a favorite hat, it doesn't quite fit you, or, you know, a wicker hat or something, you need something a little bit berry and routine, or find it itchy or something, make one of these. Make it out of flannel, make it out of cotton, make it out of jersey. You know, make it something that's light or, you know, a little heavier depending on what you need it for, depending on the season. You know, just think about it, how you could use it in your daily, you know, thing. Or daily schedule. Like we have the sunroof in the little car which Pop drives to work. I think it'd be nice for him to put the sunroof down and be able to wear one of these without feeling he's going to get the top of his head sunstroked or burnt, right? So I think that's, you know, having one of these in the car, just stuffed in the glove box, is a great idea. You know, you go for a ride on a motorbike, or, you know, you're in a convertible, ties all your hair back, you know. I don't know. There's many, 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 many uses for it. You don't want to use a dye bottle for a while? Cover the roots. There's many solutions. All right. Apparently it didn't say anything to think, all right. Okay, there we go. So we'll take this one off. And we'll put this one on. There we go. So you see, the queen of quilts tied at the back. Make sure it fits where I want it to fit. And then tie it. Make sure the little flap is down for the back of your neck. Hold on, let me get this right here. Clearly I have something wrong. There we go. Tighten it up. You get the gist. All right, that's Weekend Project, and we will see you tomorrow on the live stream. Thanks, everybody. Take care.